Hello, The Life of Chai, back again for another amazing how-to video. Today we're going to make Salsa Molcajete. This is one of the most traditional salsas found in Mexican cuisine, and we make the salsa by hand with a molcajete. This stone grinding tool dates back literally thousands of years to Aztec and Mayan cultures. Today we'll be using it to make the salsa. Okay, this salsa can also be prepared in a blender, but with one difference. It's not going to taste the same. Most people will agree, but they cannot understand why. I can explain to you why. This is the stone. You see how it's been aged with hands and whatnot. But here you can see this is where the usage part of it is. And this is the usage part too. A little bit different color, lighter color. And that's because a little bit of stone comes out into the food. And that's the difference in the flavor. Most people don't understand that, but that's why there's a difference in flavor, because there's a little stone in the food. We're going to begin with garlic. And I have 1 clove. I'm going to just cut it. You don't have to, but for ease, I'm going to cut the garlic. And this recipe calls for 1 clove of garlic and 5 of these serrano chilies. These have been roasted, and I cut them up just a few times too. I cut them up. I'm going to start with 2 of those in there. Serrano chilies that have been roasted. Okay. And we start with the garlic and chilies. Now you need to, there's a technique here that you need to learn where you're actually mashing. You actually start to mash that garlic, and that's why I cut it a few times. I chop it into 5 or 6 smaller pieces, 1 clove. You see that? Now I'm smashing the chili into the garlic, and that looks pretty good. I got 3 more chilies. We got 5 chilies that are roasted, and you can see that one's perfect. And by cutting it again, you don't have to cut it, but by cutting it, it makes perfect. If it got black, I would take the skin off, but this is perfectly roasted, and I used the gas barbecue grill to do that. Take off that little end piece, okay. Here we have our chili. And again, you just smash them. You're smashing them. You start with the garlic and chili. The chili, because if you start adding everything together, you'll never be able to find the chilies and be able to grind them. It's not really grinding, it's like a blender that cuts everything up, and you learn different techniques. You may be going like this, you may do something like that. And you kind of have to feel. Now I use a spoon to clean this off. Let's see where we're at. Okay, I'm looking at those chilies, and you can also use the spoon to clean the edges and keep everything down in the center there. That looks pretty good, because we're going to be doing the tomatoes. The tomatoes go in without the skin. Roasted. And I always like to take out this little I'm going to start with 1 tomato. The recipe calls for 5 chilies, 2 tomatoes, 1 clove of garlic, and a teaspoon of salt. That's a lot of salt. So I reduce it to actually a 1/4 teaspoon and then test it. You can always put more salt in it. The tomatoes need to be worked. The center part, and I forgot a piece of skin. The skin is actually tough. Okay, that's one tomato. Here's another tomato. There's no skin. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm going to actually put 2 more tomatoes in. So here's what happens, and this is where I've changed the recipe. The recipe calls for 2 tomatoes. Well, 5 chilies and 2 tomatoes, it's very spicy. 5 chilies with only 2 tomatoes. Right now I'm at 3 tomatoes. But then again, the recipe doesn't say 100 grams, 200 grams of tomatoes. It just says 2 tomatoes. So they may have been talking about big tomatoes. And I buy small tomatoes. I buy some of the smallest Roma tomatoes that I can find. You can see that. And I buy equal size. That way when I roast them, they all roast at about the same speed. But I like the smaller ones only because they cook and roast a little quicker. As I start adding tomatoes, we get more volume in here, and it's a little bit harder to find the tomato. You can feel it. There's the chunks, and you're looking for them to smash them. Here again, we've got stuff on the side, so I'm going to pull it down in there. And more tomatoes. So really, again, the recipe, and you take off the skin and this little stem. The recipe didn't call for an amount, ounces or grams of tomato. I'm going to use more, so I'm just going to prepare them all at once here. Yeah, again, the skin is really tough. You don't want to find skin in there in your salsa, because you're going to be chewing on it and you can't really grind it. So this one is clean. Okay. Get rid of that little stem. Here we go. And let's grind this up. So again, it's finding, and you have to just take your time. It doesn't take that long. It's actually fun once you've learned how to do it. Then you have a party or some friends, a small gathering. You can invite one of your friends to do this. It gets them involved, and it's actually an amazing. So I'm searching for those pieces, and you may be wondering what I'm saying, but when you make it, you'll understand. There's a chunk. See that? Part of the inner piece of the tomato, the veins, and it's a little tougher. Okay. Cut one in half this way. This is that part I'm telling you about. That part. And if you can actually cut it a little bit beforehand if you want to make it easier. That would actually make it easier. See that? That inner part is hard to smash. So if you cut them up a little bit first. Okay. Let's continue. So there's 2 things that I look for here. This salsa happens to be very spicy. There's 5 roasted serranos. Oh yeah, by the way, click that. This is going to be an incredible salsa, and you know that. So click the subscribe, because there's more recipes coming. After the salsa, what are we going to do with the salsa? We need to make some taquitos, otherwise known as rolled tacos or tacos dorados. Depending on where you come from, the taquitos will love this salsa. Any Mexican food loves this salsa. But 5 serranos, okay, so it's almost like eating, and some people can eat whole serranos. Not all Mexicans like spicy food, but those that like spicy food can eat a whole serrano. Okay, so I'm still finding some of the it's a little bit kind of slimy, but with volume, and I'm trying to find those thicker things and parts, and you can't just do that. You gotta find it, and again, you can feel it through the stone. So I do two things. I'm also looking at the color. Now what I do is, so here's how it works. Because I have more chilies, I have more tomatoes, I'm going to add one more. If you can taste it right now, and right now that would burn my mouth off, so I'm not going to do that. But if I had my tester here, she could do that. The recipe called for 2 tomatoes. I think I'm up to 6, but there's small tomatoes. And what I do is I roast 8 or 10. So the idea is you can taste it. You put in 5, taste it. If it's too spicy, put in another 6 or 7. Taste it. If it's too spicy, put in another. And that way, see, you get to the spice level that you want. And again, you can't put in all the tomatoes at once. Well, you could, but it'd be very difficult to find all those hard spots. And then let's do that a little bit. So that is going to get some of that, and actually get a little bit of that stone. There's a spot right there. That's one of them. By doing that, you can hear the stone sliding across the bottom, and I'm finding, at the same time I'm finding pieces. I'm trying to work them, but that's giving us, the stone is imparting a little bit of that. There it is. Okay, so again, I think that's about done, and I'm not gonna try it because that's gonna just burn my face off, but that's about it. And we're gonna save it into a bottle. I always save bottles. Here's a bottle, and you can, once you're done, this makes the perfect serving bowl as well. Okay, so you serve it when your guests come over with the food, and then save it into a bottle that has a nice lid, and this will go for a week in the refrigerator if it lasts that long. You know what, I forgot the salt. It called for a teaspoon, and I'm going to use a half. This is a 1/4 teaspoon measurement. So I'm only going to use a half, and then I'm going to find my taste tester, bring her down here, and we'll see what that tastes like. Anyway, that's it. Be sure to subscribe. Salsa Molcajete. This is the most original version you're going to find. And thank you. Stay tuned for more how-to videos, short how-to videos coming up. Thank you.